So this is kind of a continuation of the talk that we had last week. Um, we talked about kind of the danger and of sexual sin, and this is going to be a discussion on how to heal from a lot of that damage. And one thing that comes from some sexual sins, or just in the relationship dynamic of today, is breakup. And so I was inspired to write this today about how to heal from a breakup. And one thing about it, I had to, kind of think about it. It's like, the Most High didn't really create us to be broken up with. It's like, if you're a man, he made you to be with your wife forever, or with your wives forever. And if you're a woman, he created you to be with your husband forever. He didn't create us to be in this state of brokenness, and in regards to our relationships. So we have to come to that reality when we come to that question, because this is a very layered question when it talks about how do you heal from a breakup. So I think that is the way I kind of see it at first. And I think the way we embrace the truth, it allows us to kind of snap us out of the reality that we live in, and we come back into the way that the Most High created us to be. So that's kind of how we're going to go with it on this discussion, and hopefully we can get something out of that. So how do I heal from a breakup? Well, the one thing I think is most important is to understand, why did it occur. uh, you know, Putting some blame on yourself. Why did I make these decisions or allow this to happen? I think accountability starts off the process of embracing truth, and once we embrace truth, it allows us to be free. Like as Christ said, when we know the truth shall set us free. And a lot of this breakup or this brokenness that we feel is because we feel trapped in a state that we were put in, or we placed ourselves in. And like I said, change only comes from repentance, and repentance starts with accountability. So the other question is, are you a man or a woman? Because I think men and women, they handle breakups differently, and they recover differently, or they just go to the process in a different way. So we're gonna kind of touch on it from that standpoint as well. And then also understanding how you have to take time to yourself. You got to figure out what the problem is, because every relationship is different, every person is different, everything's unique in a way. So we're going to talk about it in a general sense, but you also got to understand how to just embrace it from your standpoint. And this also is going to allows me to touch on the celibacy topic in First Corinthians. So first, with the scripture is Galatians chapter 5 verse 14. For all the law is fulfilled in one word, even in this, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. So that's the question. So do you love yourself? Do you like yourself? That that's a real question. Like we have to we have to answer that. It's like, because the way you think about yourself will affect the way you see your neighbor. And I see that all the way today. I think, in regards to the so-called Black community, a lot of people don't really value themselves, so that it's hard for them to value their neighbor. I you say this to my friend all the time. The reason why the crime rate, the murder rate is so high, especially where I'm from in St. Louis, is because a lot of so-called Black men, they don't really see a value in themselves. They see their neighbor, their brother, and they say, since I don't value myself, I don't value yours, so I can take your life. And that's why it's important that we really get into that spiritual sense of knowing who we are in Christ, and knowing who we are under the Most High, to establish that sense of value. Because when you have value for yourself, you have value for your neighbor. And when you have value for your neighbor, you have value for yourself. You have value for your community. So, in regards to relationship topic, if the Most High brought you the woman or the man of your dreams, would you be ready for that person? Would you be good for that person? I think that's something that you have to ask yourself. And if not, why? Are you still dealing with some brokenness? Are you still feeling with some baggage? Or you feel like something about you is not up to par? I think that's something we have to address. So we're going to keep going. Verse 15. But if you bite and devour one another, take heed that you be not consumed by one another. And when he says bite, that literally means to wound the soul. So how do you wound the soul? Being having a sense of rejection, perfectionist, abandonment. When I say that, I mean you deal with these types of problems. Like, you've been rejected before, so you might project that onto your partner or your friend, or you're a perfectionist. So you may expect your friend or your partner to read your mind. You deal with abandonment issues, so you're very clingy, or you feel like, this person should always know what I need, or I always have to be around them. You don't give this person any space to kind of do the things that they have to do. So it's like kind of that biting and then also devouring. How you do that? You consume someone's strength or emotions. That's what it means. You ever heard of an energy vampire? Someone who, after you talk to them, you almost feel like you're drained. It's like you never feel like, they're taking things from you, but they're never replenishing you. So we have to be careful with that sometimes when we get into these relationships. We have to understand that this person needs me as much as I need them. Especially if we're going to into that serious relationship um, component where we want to be with this person. We see a long term or relationship with this person. We have to be careful not to just always be taking, taking, taking. We should always look for how can I improve this person's life as much as they're improving my life. All right, chapter six. All right, verse 16. This I say then, walk in the spirit, and ye shall not fulfill the lust of the flesh. What's the lust of the flesh? We're going to get into that. Verse 17, for the flesh lusteth against the spirit, and the spirit against the flesh. And these are contrary, the one to the other, so that ye cannot do the things that you would. But if ye be led of the spirit, you are not under the law. And when you say you're not led of the spirit, not under the law, you're led under the spirit, not under the law. Not saying that you don't follow the commandments anymore. It's saying that since you're under the spirit, you don't have to be under the guidance of that Levitical priesthood. Because in Paul's time, he understood what was coming to the nation of Israel, that the temple was going to be destroyed. So that they're connected to the Most High through the Spirit. They're not under the old covenant or the old regulations of the covenant in regards to the priesthood, because now we have a heavenly priest. All right. All right. Oh. Now, Galatians chapter 5, verse 19. Now the works of the flesh are manifest, which are these: adultery, fornication, uncleanness, lasciviousness. Now we talked about adultery and the fornication in last top PowerPoint, last study last week. If y'all want to watch that, it's going to be in my YouTube, but I can give you the link later. But uncleanness, not just physical uncleanness, but spiritual uncleanness. The things that we say, the things that we do. Lasciviousness. What is lasciviousness? That's like a sexual wantonness, like you're just having sex with anything. Like you meet somebody at the bar, you have sex with them in the bathroom, like that Kanye West lyric, it's like, come and meet me in the bathroom stall and show me why you deserve to have it all. Like that mentality, like you just have sex, wantonness. And now idolatry, idolatry is when you put anything on that pedestal that the Most High deserves to be on. And good things can be idolized, your career or your relationship, children, that you can put them on a pedestal and they can almost control your life in a way, you know. Witchcraft. Now we know about witchcraft in regards to like magic and like Harry Potter type of stuff, but in the Greek, witchcraft actually means pharmakia. We know that as the root word for pharmacy. And because back in the day, that was what they used. They used drugs or poisoning, sorcery, magical arts in order to kind of seduce the people. And the same way that they're kind of doing it today with the medical dictatorship, per se, how they're saying everyone needs to trust the science. It's almost like they're playing a mind game on the people. It's because science is being used in a way like a witchcraft in order to seduce the people. Um, but hatred also, variance, where you're kind of going back and forth with someone all the time, just debating every time. Emulations, which is also envying or jealousy. Wrath, always being angry. Strife, you're constantly want to just fight with everybody. You always want to be first. You always like someone who always wants to be in first place or wants the last word in a conversation or argument. Seditions and heresies, and constantly just kind of, like I said, arguments and going back and forth. And heresies is also just different groups at the time, like the Pharisees, Sadducees, even some Christian sects or groups who were constantly bickering about how the law should be interpreted. And then also other works of the flesh are envyings, murders, like unjust killings, drunkenness, revelings. Revelings is that it's like a half drunken party that they used to honor back in the day in the Greek culture. And they honored their gods like Bacchus, where they just had these wild parties or celebrations, kind of like a wild concert type of event and such alike. And the which I tell you before, as I have also told you in the time past, that they which do such things shall not inherit the kingdom of God. So we see all these things of the lust of the flesh. They lead us into all these types of sins, and the punishment is that so you don't inherit the kingdom. So now we know that falling the flesh leads us into sin and heartbreak, quote unquote heartbreak. So why do we follow after the flesh? Because it's not just enough about reading it, because we can read it and say like, yeah, I know that's wrong, but we're inclined to follow the flesh. So why are we inclined? That's the question that we need to answer, and that's how we establish change. That's how we heal. So why did this occur? So I wrote a list of some things that based off the conversations I've had and experiences I've witnessed, that things that I believe that why we allow our flesh to take over us. And one of the first things I thought about was loneliness. And so when you're lonely, you kind of tolerate a lot of things. You kind of accept anything really because you just don't want to be alone. And envy, anger, lack of knowledge, lack of control, lack of accountability, too much accessibility, boredom. And that's just a few. But I think the most important ones that I believe are the top four: loneliness, envy, anger, and lack of knowledge. How it allows our flesh to kind of get that uprise on us, or allows Satan to get that foothold in the parts of our heart that we don't like to talk about. Because it's hard to admit that you're lonely or envy or upset with things, you know. So we're gonna talk about each one. First, the first top four. So loneliness. So we know it's not good for man to be alone, but there's a difference between being alone or solitary and feeling lonely. Because being alone or solitary, you may just be focusing on yourself, focusing on what you need in life and how to grow. But when you feel lonely, that's like a state of being where it can lead you into some things that you don't really want to do and may compromise your decisions because you're making a decision out of loneliness. You may get into a relationship out of being lonely, and you may end up in a bad situation for being lonely because you're with someone who is going to fill that void, but they're not necessarily going to be there. That emotional need that you need. You have to really understand that loneliness in your heart before you get with someone else, because if someone knows that you're lonely, they can kind of use that to manipulate what they want from you. Oh, oh yeah. So what are the dangers of loneliness? Loneliness, you can damage the other person. What I mean by that, because you're with the person for the wrong reasons. You're not with this person for love. You're with this person for just for their presence, really. And this person may really care about you, and you may be just using this person just for just a moment, just to be with them. The state of loneliness leads you into idolatry. When I say idolatry, I mean you actually put this person on a pedestal because you would start to ignore red flags out of fear, being alone. You may notice that this person is neglectful or disrespectful, verbally abusive, overly confrontational, but you just ignore it because you don't want to be alone. You know, so it's important to and understand that emotion inside you, that loneliness is not something that you want to uh, embrace. If you ever feel that sense of loneliness, you have to address it quickly before it turns into something that can cause a problem in your life. And also loneliness, you can have, you start to have sex or give your body to anyone just because you want that person to stay. And that can lead you into trouble as well. You're giving your body to someone and they don't have that a sense of loyalty to you. They're using you, and you're giving yourself to be used. So you have to check that emotion quickly. Like I said, it can lead to some problems in your life that you don't want. All right. I think someone had put something in the chat. Yes, man. Oh, then oh, I'm sorry. All right, go back. All right. So now Lamentation. This is one of my favorite verses about loneliness, especially for a young man. I think this is good for everyone to use, but especially a young man who may be feeling lonely. Lamentation chapter 3, verse 25. The Lord is good unto them that wait for him, to the soul that seeketh him. It is good that a man should both hope and quietly wait for the salvation of the Lord. It is good for a man that he bear the yoke in his youth. He sitteth alone and keep silence because he has borne it upon him. So sometimes the Most High may put something on you that's that isolation, that period of just separation from everyone. You may feel like a loner. You may feel like you just have been ostracized from a group, even people that you were close with, childhood friends. But it's a purpose that he's doing this for you, because sometimes he may be protecting you from that group, or he may be using you to uh, trying to cultivate something that's in you, that the only way he can really get it out of you is if you're separated, so you won't be distracted by other people. Verse 29, he put his mouth in the dust. If so be there may be hope. He giveth his cheek to him that smiteth him. He is filled with reproach, for the Lord will not cast off forever. So sometimes the Lord gonna have to put you down low. You're gonna be in a humble state. You're gonna be in a position where people may feel like they're able to take advantage of you. You may feel like, man, it's like my life isn't going as I planned, and you know, you have to sometimes take that. He's you have to just take that, because sometimes the Most High may be humbling you for some reason, and you want to buck up, you want to be angry, but sometimes you have to go through that process, and always remember that the Lord is not casting you off forever. Sometimes this is just the process that you have to go through as a young man to develop your manhood, just to develop your sense of understanding who you are. Verse 32, but though he cause grief, yet he will have compassion, according to the multitude of his mercies. For he does not afflict willingly, nor grieve the children of men. So we have to always remember that when we go into a hard time, that the Most High is not giving us these bad situations or these circumstances because he hates us. No, he's doing this. He may cause grief, but he also gives us compassion. He gives us mercy, and he doesn't do this willingly. Sometimes we need this in order to develop our character. Sometimes we need to do this so we can help the next person. We don't always see what the Most High sees. As we know, the scriptures say, His ways are greater than our ways. His thoughts are greater than our thoughts. So we don't always see the things that He sees. So we always have to take that humbly and just trust that the Most High has a plan for our life. And if we really believe that, then we shouldn't have that sense of doubt in Him. All right. And this is another scripture, Deuteronomy 8:5. Thou shalt also consider in thy heart that as a man chasten his son, so the Lord thy God chasten thee. So as a man disciplines his own son or his child, the Most High, He says, I'm disciplining you. And we have to take that to heart. Proverbs 3:11, my son, despise not the chastening of the Lord, neither be weary of his correction. For whom the Lord loveth, he correcteth, even as a father, the son in whom he delighteth. So sometimes we may think our fathers are being hard on us or being strict on us, but when we get older, we realize that they were doing that to protect us. They understand, they live life, they understand the dangers that this world has, and they're trying to lead us in the right way. And when we're young, we don't understand that, we don't appreciate that. We may be think they're being vindictive or being spiteful towards us, but as we get older, and hopefully we have our own children, we start to understand the importance of discipline and importance of structure. You know, and also isolation may not be the best for certain people. In my personal opinion, I think all young men have to be isolated for a period of time to develop their own manhood in order to become confident in their own decision making, because it's difficult for someone to make decisions when they always have someone kind of giving their 2 cents. And sometimes you have to be confident in what you want to do, and that takes a period of time. Not everybody has to be alone for 5, 10 years or whatever like that. But I think every man has to go through a process where they have to understand how to live life, how to take care of themselves. because if you want a woman, she's a helpmeet. So in order to need a helpmeet, you have to understand what you're weak at or what you need help with. So in order to know what you need help with, you got to live life and understand like, oh man, I wish I had some help in this area right here or this area right here. And then you have, once you get a woman, you can kind of tell her like, oh, can you take care of this for me, or you can do this for me while I do this. So it's a lot easier to understand what you need when you've been in that state of separation or isolation for a minute. So then you can, have some control or order around your life. Just my perspective, like I said, people do what they need to do. All right, envy. All right, this is a big one. I think envy causes us to make a lot of bad decisions uh, from a lot of different perspectives too. I think when we think about envy, it's just about being jealous of somebody, but envy can creep up in a lot of different ways. And envy is just like loneliness. Is very insidious. You don't really know that you have it until you're in a situation where it comes out. And I think especially with women, it comes out a lot. Like in this picture, you see the three little figurines. They jealous of the girl with the purse and the earrings. They looking like, oh man, she thinks she's cute with that purse, huh? They just jealous. They ain't got a purse. They ain't her fault. She can get her own purse. Like, it don't even look that expensive. But envy, we're gonna get into that Proverbs 27, verse 4. Wrath is cruel and anger is outrageous, but who is able to stand before envy? That's very deep because you can see wrath, you can see anger, you can see when somebody's mad. You can't really see it when somebody's envious of you. That kind of sneaky. You think that's your brother, you think that's your homegirl, and they really plotting in their heart. They're like, oh man, I can't wait for their downfall. You like, that's why it's hard to stand against it. You don't see it. So it's very difficult to admit that you're envious or jealous of someone. And then also in going to the relationship aspect, some people that get into a relationship or hook up with somebody because they were jealous. It's like women is like a girl said, like, oh man, she hooked up with this guy. I want to hook up with somebody. Or especially like in high school, people start having sex because their friends starting to have sex. They don't want to be left out. They don't want to be seen as approved. They don't want to be seen as the weird person. And it's like, you do things out of envy, out of jealousy, or you want to make someone else jealous. You know, it's just so I say it's very creepy, insidious emotion. You got to check that as well. And envy stems from a low self-esteem because you're not confident in your own skills and your own gifts, and you spend a lot of your time comparing yourself to others. You're always trying to outdo someone instead of just outdoing yourself. That's what it's about. That's why the Most High told us not to covet what the neighbor has, because you have your own gifts, you have your own abilities, and you have to spend your time focusing on that. Because if you spend your time focusing on other person's stuff, you're not ever going to have a happy life, a fulfilling life. You're going to always be living a life out of comparison, and that's no joy. There's an old proverb that says, comparison is the thief of joy. So many people they have miserable lives because they live their life comparatively. And, that's not something you want to do. Proverbs 3:31. Envy thou not the oppressor, choose none of his ways, for the froward is an abomination to the Lord, but his secret is with the righteous. And when you say envy not the oppressor, choose none of his ways, how does that look like today? In my opinion, I mean, feminism is based off envy. It was because women wanted the rights of a man, and they wanted the right to vote, which is, I think that's fine. But it gets into a point where it becomes, now I want to be like you. I want to take your position. I want everything that you have, and you do what I did. And it's just like, let's switch everything. And we are entering the later facts, the later phases of that early stage of feminism. And I see a lot of people are not happy with that. Um, oh, and then and also just in regards to the so-called black community, is so many so-called black people, they get envious over about the regular everyday so-called white person. It's like you're envy for what they have. Everybody wants to talk about white privilege, and it's like I can't do what you can do, and I wish I could walk around with my AK-47, not get stopped by the police. It's just like your life is just always about comparing it to somebody else, and it's just like you have to understand, like, we're under captivity. We're in a state of prison, a spiritual prison here. And it's like in prison, you don't eat the finest meal. You don't get the rights of a person that's free. A lot of people think we're free because it's America, land of the free, but that's a corporate title. We're not free in this land. And it's just like, but we try to compare ourselves to people here, and it leads to a lot of consternation, a lot of pain, a lot of anguish, anxiety. There are people who they really stress out over racism every day. They wake up and feel this sense of pressure, and it's just like sometimes it's all in your mind. It's like none of us were born into slavery, but they live with this post-traumatic slave syndrome every day. Like you can't live that way. You're not going to be happy. You're not going to be fulfilled. You're always going to be envying your oppressor. And when you envy your oppressor or so-called oppressor, you don't know what their end is. You don't know what their judgment is. If you want the good, you're going to take the bad with that. So you can't put yourself in that position. You have to check that emotion of envy in order to live a life that's productive. All right, Proverbs 14, verse 30. A sound heart is the life of the flesh, but envy, the rottenness of the bones. So envy goes into your core. It makes you say and do things you normally wouldn't do in your right mind, or give advice that's sound. An example of that is the mother envying the daughter. That's something that a lot of people don't talk about, but there are a lot of older women who get envious of younger women, and they end up telling them bad advice. There are some good women who, they've been married for 30 years. They might have got married when they were 20, 19, 21, and they have a daughter who's around the same age. And instead of the mother telling the daughter what she did, she's kind of giving her the other advice because the mother, low key resents having that life that she, was married at a young age. She wanted to experience life. So she's telling her daughter, maybe you should go and pursue that PhD, or maybe you should go and, travel and date around, get that life, get that career, get your experience up. And now this daughter, she turns, later on in the years, 10 years later, about to turn 30, and she's been through a series of emotional relationship baggage and, back and forth. She may have had, a child, and she may, still wants to be married, but she's been through so much problems, and she has student loan debt, and she feels this sense of anxiety and depression because she was given this advice from her mother or from her older aunt or an older person who was giving her advice because she wanted to live vicariously through her. So that's why I say envy really, it comes into the core of somebody, and it really makes, not only you make decisions, bad decisions or decisions that you regret, it can make other people regret those decisions as well. So again, we have to always check that spirit of envy. We have to always examine this person, if this person may be envious of me. And we have to, live a life of kind of testing people. We have to vet people that we meet because we really don't know what they're about until we get to know them. That's when you got to really flesh someone out. You got to really get into, what is the motivation of this person. Uh, I saw this on social media. This is a girl. She posted that she met her husband at eighth grade. She remembered telling her grandma, begging her go on a date with him, and said, "This is going to be my husband." And it became her husband. She married this guy. And this girl, she commented, said, like, "Damn, imagine missing out on mad N words because you met your soulmate in eighth grade. I'd be infuriated." But that's the thing. That's what comes with this envy mentality. Everything is kind of backwards in this society. That's why this is Satan's society, because that's ideal. You want to meet your husband young and you want to marry and live a good life. But in her mind, that's a bad thing. I want to get married and I want to experience life. I want to hop on different guys. I want to really get to know myself. And that's why it's like this verse really pulled this out. I thought about this as soon as I saw that. I was like, Isaiah 5:20, woe unto them that call evil good and good evil, that put darkness for light, light for darkness, and put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. Because everything is upside down in this world. A lot of people had this mentality. It's like, they can't even imagine, having a stable relationship early in their life. It's like they think that's more something when you're 30, 40. It's like having it when you're a teenager. That's preposterous. Can't even imagine. So I haven't even been around, and it's just like that's the mentality that we have to deal with out here. Ecclesiastes chapter 8, verse 12. Though a sinner do evil 100 times and his days be prolonged, yet surely I know that it shall be well with them that fear God, which fear before him. So we have to have that mentality out here because a lot of people may be prosperous. They may be doing well in life out of ill-gotten gain or out of just evil. And we feel like, man, like why are they happy? Like, they doing all this stuff and they got married or they got kids, they got money. But we have to remember we gotta have faith that even though it may seem like they're doing well now, we have to understand that, it's always going to be better for those who fear the most high. And that's the type of faith we have to live. We have to remind ourselves that because it's easy to get discouraged here, you know. And when you follow people like that, I remember when Kim Kardashian got Kanye West, people were jealous of Kim Kardashian. I remember that in college. And it's just like you can't envy those type of people because you don't know what their end is. You don't know their real life. So you have to always have this mentality when you see stuff like that. Again, Ecclesiastes chapter 9, verse 5. For the living know that they shall die, but the dead know not anything. Neither have that they any more of reward, for the memory of them is forgotten. Also their love and their hatred and their envy is now perished. Neither have they any more portion forever in anything that is done under the sun. So at the end of the day, we may have all these emotions, we may have all these relationships, but we have to always remember the flesh is temporary. That envy, that spirit that you have on you, that's going to be gone one day. 100 years from now, if this society lasts that long, people are not going to remember us and what our emotions was, or what our emotions was on March 12th, 2022. Nobody's going to remember that. So we have to have that perspective in regards to some emotions that we may feel. So especially envy and loneliness, we have to really check that. All right. Next is anger. All right. Be not hasty in thy spirit to be angry, for anger resteth in the bosom of fools. All right. So again, oh no, anger. That's an emotion that we always have to be careful about. Angry, when you make angry decisions, you don't, or angry decisions, you're not making the best decisions, and you got to be careful about that. I think I put something. No, in the next one. Proverbs 16:32, he that is slow to anger is better than the mighty, and he that rules his spirit than he that taketh the city. One of the hardest things to do is to control your emotions, but if we don't control our emotions, we can get easily manipulated by our emotions, or someone can easily manipulate us when we're emotional. So we have to be careful about that, especially in regards to relationships, because if someone is able to trigger us into that angry spirit, they're able to control us because they can put that spirit of anger on us and make us do things that they may want us to do. There are a lot of people who want to provoke you in this life, and you have to be able to either walk away or be able to check this person, confront this person, or just be able to understand that you can't let this person provoke you. A lot of our people are reactive. We're not proactive in regards to thinking. We like to think emotionally. That's why we're so easily led astray, because people can get us into that state and guide us where they want us to go. Proverbs 25, verse 28. He that has no rule over his own spirit is like a city that is broken down without walls. When a city has no wall, it's defenseless. It's privy to any attack on any side. When you don't have control of your own spirit, anyone can get into your body. Anybody can get into your mind. They're able to control you. So it's like you have to have self-control in order to not let someone take advantage of you. That's big. A lot of us, sometimes we've been in relationships because we were so open to this person and they were able to come into us or come on to us and have their way with us, and we weren't able to stop that because we were so open with our emotions. Like that saying, you wear your heart on your sleeve. Sometimes you got to keep your heart in your chest where it's protected by the ribs. You can't let it be vulnerable like that. Proverbs 27, verse 3. A stone is heavy and sand There's a saying weighty, but a fool's wrath is heavier than them both. That's real. That's heavy right there. That's because it's like a fool's wrath is powerful. It can lead to a lot of damage, a lot of a lot of drama, a lot of death can happen when a fool gets angry. And you don't ever want to be around somebody to just get angry and wrathful, just spontaneous almost. Anything triggers this person. And this goes into like revenge cheating. There are people who they may have been in a bad situation because they wanted to, be like the other person. That's why it's like anger and envy kind of go in together. It's like you're envious and you're angry and you do. It's like I'm gonna do to him what he did to me, or I'm gonna do to her what she did to me, and that could lead you into some other trouble. So you got to be careful about some of these emotions. All right, all right. Y'all still there? Y'all with me? Y'all still there? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
All right, cool.
Sir.
All right, courage is admitting when you're your own worst enemy. And I like this quote. I don't know where I found this, but it's just like I think this is really good because a lot of times we think bravery is just like confronting everything and everybody, but the strongest courage is about confronting yourself. You got to know who you are, because we are our own worst enemy. When we talk about like oppressors and so-called oppressors, our one biggest oppressor is ourselves, the dark aspect of ourselves, our flesh that makes us do things that we shouldn't be doing. So the courage or the bravery that you experience is when you're able to confront yourself, you're able to admit things to yourself, and you're able to embrace the truth, and then you're able to change. Because people who are afraid of the truth, they lie. And people who lie, they never change. They're stuck in their ways. They may change the physical or the exterior component of themselves, but they don't change the internal part of themselves. And that's the part that the Most High is looking at. He wants that to change because that's going to be his place of dwelling. That's where he wants to stay. All right, so we're going to get into kind of lack of awareness and accountability. I think we have a couple of scriptures in here. Proverbs 30, verse 20. I love Proverbs too, by the way. That's my favorite. But such is the way of an adulterous woman. She eateth and wipeth her mouth and says, I have done no wickedness. And this is woman who has no accountability. She's an adulterous woman. She's supposed to be in a committed relationship, but she's doing things that that's wrong. And then she wipes her mouth and says, I ain't do nothing wrong. And it's just that's the spirit of no accountability. It's the spirit of Adam and Eve. When Most High told Adam, why'd you eat from that fruit? He said, I ain't eat it. She gave it to me. He said, why'd you eat it? Well, I didn't do it. The serpent gave it to me. And it's like constantly deflecting. It's just like, she does this type of person doesn't embrace truth. And adulterous woman, also there's always a spiritual component because, Israel or the church is the bride of Christ, the bride of the Most High. So we're supposed to have that accountability, but that adulterous spiritual nature is that, the Most High is telling us not to do something and we do it anyway. And then we just act like, oh, it didn't happen. Or we say, oh, in Jesus' name, I'm good. It's like, that's not going to save us just by saying that. We have to embrace the truth and we have to keep ourselves accountable and we have to stop doing that, because the Most High is not going to reward an adulterous woman. He's not going to reward an adulterous bride with himself. Proverbs 29, verse 11, a fool uttereth all his mind, but a wise man keep it until afterwards. So there's just like the one proverb we read about man controlling the spirit. You got to control. You can't say everything to everybody. You have to be aware of the things that you put out, to certain people. Sometimes you have to be with somebody for a while before you really let them understand everything about you because you don't know what this person is about. Like you said, some people may be envious of you. Some people just like to gossip about you. And you have to be able to discern if this person is trustworthy. Not everybody is trustworthy. Not everybody is worthy of that trust. So you have to be careful on who you expose things to, because not everybody is worth that honesty to. Honestly, Ecclesiastes chapter 7, verse 26. And I find more bitter than death the woman whose heart is snares and nets, her hands as bands. Whoso pleases God shall escape her, but the sinner shall be taken by her. And this is scripture for a lot of guys who, they may have fallen in love with the wrong type of woman or they just fell in love in general. It's like, I always tell Jody, like, you don't fall in love, you grow in love. That's the most important thing because when you fall, you're going to get hurt. You never fall into something good. You grow into something. So the same thing with in relationship. A lot of men, they fall in love, or they go into with the wrong woman with the wrong intentions, and they find out that she's really a snare. She's a net. She's trying to entrap you. So now she changed on, or they say she changed on me after I got her married, or after I got her pregnant. She changed on me. Now she doesn't really want me, or she cheated on me, or she taking me to court. And it's like, well, you should have took some time to get to know her, because you gotta understand that a lot of people, like I said, they're not necessarily trustworthy. So you have to see if this person is worthy of your trust. You got to see if this person is worthy of your seed. People get these people pregnant the first time they meet them, and it's like they get surprised when they change. And it's like, well, you got to be able to make more appropriate decisions. And it says right here, if the one who pleases God shall escape her. Because if you're doing what the Most High has told you to do, and being careful to obeying His commandments, and living life that is prudent and responsible, she's not going to be able to ensnare you. She's actually going to be repelled by you, because you can't keep a woman that's going to be not one to be kept under that type of stipulation. But the sinner, she shall be taken by her, because the sinner is just going to want. He's going to be attracted by that lust. He's going to be attracted by her body, or attracted by her feminine wiles. So if you please in the Most High, He's going to allow you to escape from that. But if you're just trying to please your flesh, she gonna get you, bro. So you gotta be careful. And same chapter, verse 27. Behold, this have I found, says the preacher, counting one by one to find out the account, which yet my soul seeketh, but I find not. One man among 1,000 have I found, but a woman among all those have I not found. Lo, this only have I found, that God has made man upright, but they have sought out many inventions. And what is it saying right here? So he's saying that he's looked all around, and he tried to find somebody who was upright, or someone who pleased God. And he said, I found one man out of 1,000, but I couldn't find a woman out among them all. So he's saying most people that you meet are not going to be living upright. They're not going to be living a life that's righteous. And not to say that there's not anyone out there, but it's like the majority of men that you meet, they're going to be on a different type of code of ethics, if they have ethics at all. And a lot of women that you meet, they're not going to be finished products. Some of them are going to be good, but some of them, they're going to have some problems, and you're going to have to understand that when you're going into this time, the time period that we're in today. It's not to say that there's no good women out here. There are good women out here, but first you have to be a good person yourself in order to find that. Because, you know, just to be honest with you, a lot of good people, they don't really be out in the world. They're kind of taking care of their own business. They're at work, or they're at church, or they're at home. They don't really be out there. So if you actually find somebody that's good for you, you're very fortunate, man, male or female. You have to don't take those people for granted, because the majority of these people in this world are not upright people. You know, just being real. God made us upright. The Most High made us upright, but we have sought after our own way of living, our own inventions, our own way of thinking, our own way of thinking that we're right. We have abandoned what He has set as the standard for the most part. All right, healing. So we talked about a lot of why we got into these brokenness and relationship issues. Now I'm going to talk about some scriptures about healing. And I think this is very important, because the scriptures tell us how to heal. Sometimes we don't always hearken to it, but the scriptures are very plain in regards to how we're supposed to turn back to the Most High, and how we're supposed to trust in the Most High. So these are the Psalms, a couple Psalms I wrote in here. Psalms chapter 34, verse 18. The Lord is nigh unto them that are of broken heart, and saveth such as be of a contrite spirit. And I put this out here because I was like, the Most High taught me a long time ago that sometimes, in order for Him to enter into a heart that's so stubborn, and so, how in the scriptures say, stiff-necked, or so hard-hearted, that He honestly has to break it in order for Him to come inside it. So a lot of times we may be in this state of brokenness, because when we sometimes don't know why, but that's the perfect opportunity, and our heart is so soft and so vulnerable for us to hear the truth and hear His word, and to accept it, and to allow Him to heal us. That's probably one of the only times We're going to not be self-righteous, or we're not going to be so headstrong and so uh, opinionated. We're going to be broken, so brokenhearted that he's actually able to speak to us, and we're actually so broken that we're actually vulnerable enough to listen. So that's the time that he actually is the closest to us. If we respond, if we reach out to him, he will answer. I mean, he tells us that in his word. Psalm 51, verse 17, the sacrifices of God are a broken spirit, a broken and contrite heart, O God, thou will not despise. A lot of times we want to give God everything. We want to give him all our gifts. We want to, give all these, do all these movements. We want to do all this charity work, and, we want to help everybody. But he said the sacrifice that the Most High looks for is our broken heart, because he wants to be that fulfillment for us. He wants to fill us up the only way he can. He made us with a hole in our heart sometimes, and he's the only one that's able to fill it or satisfy it. And he's waiting for that. That's what he wants, because he owns everything. He's the Most High. He created everything, but he wants you particularly. He made you for a specific reason, particularly the so-called black man. You're very special to him. Psalms 69, verse 29. But I am poor and sorrowful. Let thy salvation, O God, set me up on high. I will praise the name of God with a song, and will magnify him with thanksgiving. This also shall please the Lord better than an ox or a bullock that has horns and hooves. The humble shall see this and be glad, and your heart shall live that seek God. For the Lord hears the poor and despises not his prisoners. Again, this is another song where the Most High is telling, like, he don't care about all that ox and those sacrifices, those things you're trying to do. You're trying to get in good. You're trying to sing on a choir. You're trying to, lead these Bible studies. You're trying to do all this other stuff. And he's like, I want your heart. And then he's like, that's what I want. He's like, all that other stuff is cool, but I want that. And it's like, and that's what, because he's a husband. That's what a real husband wants out of his wife. He loves the cooking and the cleaning and the submissiveness, but he's like, I want your heart. I want you to rest in me. I want you to know that I'm here for you. That makes a man feel good, knowing that he's able to take care of his woman. She trusts in him with her heart. Like, I care about him. Like, he's my leader. That's how the Most High sees us. He's like, I want you to love me with that. I want you to give me your cares, and I want you to know that I'm here to satisfy you. It's very, very intentional. He's very, very purposeful for us, and he wants that for us. That he wants us to allow him to heal that. You know, Isaiah 66 verse 1. Thus says the Lord, the heaven is my throne, and the earth is my footstool. Where is the house that you will build unto me? Where is the place of my rest? For all those things have mine and have handmade. For all those things has my hand made, and all those things have been, says the Lord. But to this man will I look, even to him that is poor and of contrite spirit, and trembles at my word. So he's saying, I own everything. The heavens is mine. I put my feet on the earth. That's my footstool. And he's like, I got all this on lock. And he said, but the man who looks on me, I look on that man who's poor, contrite in spirit, who trembles at my word. He looks at my word, he gets convicted. He's like, man, that's me. I need that. And he said, that's the one I'm looking for right there. So it's just like, it's hard for us to imagine the God of the universe, the Most High, who created everything. He cares about our concerns. We think they're little, but we understand he's our father. He cares about everything that we go through. There's nothing's too small, nothing too big. He's like, that's the Most High. He's like, I created you for myself. So it's like, I expect you to come to me. It's weird when he said, why aren't you coming to me? What's wrong with you? Right? All right. This is okay. Now we're going to go into the celibacy stuff. Oh, okay. This is it right here about the healing stuff. Now we're going to go into celibacy and talk about First Corinthians. So I wanted to touch on this on last top, but we ran out of time.